Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with the Last Huntsman channel here, and today we're going to be doing a 2-for-1 review here. And so I have two knives here from the same maker, and I'm going to be testing them both out just to kind of get a feel for both of them. And one I've been testing for a while, one I just recently got, and that is the Bear Force Knives Huntsman Seax that I helped kind of collaborate with. And the other one that I helped collaborate with is the Bear Force Knives EDC Seax. So we got two knives here. We're going to test them both out and kind of give a review on both of these Seax style knives. Alright, so here we have both the EDC Seax and the Huntsman Camp Set, or I'll just call it the Huntsman Seax from Bear Force Knives. Both of these I kind of had a collaboration with. He kind of overall designed them, and I just kind of gave the ideas for them. But I wanted like a Seax style knife, kind of like, you know, Saxon Viking era type, but kind of in a slightly modernized form. And so we'll just go over some of the basic specs. This one is right at about a 3.5 to 4 inch blade. I don't know the exact specs offhand, but it's made out of Nitro V steel, which I haven't really had a lot of experience with, and I'm generally not a stainless guy, but thus far this stainless actually kind of seems like it appeals to me. And it's 1/8 of an inch thick, sharpened 90-degree spine, and with a really high saber grind, which I actually think for a Seax style knife is ideal, is kind of a high saber grind. This one is 5/32 thick, and it's made out of EDC V2 steel, and I always get that name mixed up for that particular steel, which I've actually become a fan of that type of steel. So, and of course obviously it's much bigger. It's more of a semi-camp slash survival knife size, but and of course Bear Force Knives is making his sheaths in-house. This is one for obviously this one, and this is one for this one, and they're pretty high quality sheaths. And you know, I like it that he's throwing these metal clips in with it. But let's get testing on these. One more thing I wanted to go over is just kind of a comparison knife size, so you kind of get an idea. And so for the EDC Seax, it is very, like, almost identical in size, just probably a little smaller than the SE3. Has a little bit less handle, but about the same length. And for the Huntsman Seax, I wanted it to be about, when I kind of came up with the concept of it, I wanted it to be about the same size as this LT Wright Forest Trail, which... Alright, so without further ado, let's start trying to do some batoning here. It's cold as shit out here. There's snow on everything, and I'm cold out here. I didn't realize how cold it is. So I'm going to try to get a fire going. I'm going to use the Huntsman Seax. We're going to baton some wood up here real quick. Seems like it does pretty good. That's fairly seasoned cedar. Alright, so now I have the EDC Seax here. We're going to try to do some little bit lighter batoning with it, since it is stainless steel and it's a smaller knife and it's only 1/8 of an inch thick. And it has a very fine tip on it. So I'm probably not going to do any crazy like prying with it. But that's not really this knife's calling. Now I will say I have been carrying this knife quite a bit too, and been doing some slicing and you know, food prep stuff with it, and it does really well with that. And one thing that's nice about the Seax style design is it just has a single straight edge on it. So like there's no kind of fancy curves or anything that you gotta like try to sharpen around. It is probably the easiest knife to maintain an edge on, which I think is why, you know, some of your medieval Vikings and Saxons liked it a lot. It was just a very practical, basic knife. And hopefully I could kind of bring it back with these designs. But for light batoning, the EDC Seax will do just well. Alright, something else we're going to try to do here with both of these is I'm going to try to do some feathering. I've never really been particularly great at this, but we're going to give it a go here. If I can find a good little spot to do it. Once I got started, and this thing is doing pretty good. Haven't done much feathering with this, so trying to get used to the edge sometimes is first part. And cedar's a real chippy kind of wood, so sometimes it's not exactly easy to do stuff like this with cedar. But that's what I mostly have right around this spot here. Now Seax, however, does make it pretty easy to do this type of stuff with, just because it has that continuous straight edge. We're going to go ahead and try the Huntsman Seax here. Feel this thing wanting to bite in quite a bit more. Now I don't know how well this ADCRV would hold up as far as like rust and corrosion resistance. I know it's kind of higher end carbon steel for sure. Now I've gotten to where I like ADCRV2 steel, but this Nitro V I'm sure would actually hold up pretty well to corrosion with all the snow and stuff. It'd actually be pretty good. Alright, so I made a lot more feather sticks off camera. I can't hardly feel my feet and my hands now, so I'm getting pretty cold. I'm gonna try to get a quick fire going here. I'm using the EDC Seax for this. A lot of this stuff is wet out here, so it's going to be fun trying to get some of this going here. EDC Seax has a pretty solid 90-degree spine. I'm using my custom-made little deer antler handle 6-inch ferro rod. Alright, so another task I'm going to try with both of these Seax knives is I'm going to do some notch making here. I'm going to try a square notch. I'm using the EDC Seax first. Got me a decent little square notch there. We're going to try to make like a tent stake notch. My Huntsman Seax kind of fell off into the snow, so I guess we'll see how well it holds up to corrosion with that 80 CRV2 steel. Decent little tent stake. Now that I got this in hand, I'm just going to try to do some basic slicing too. Just kind of get a feel for it. Now, I said earlier, this thing is a slicing little knife. I cut up some chicken and some tomatoes and cucumbers and other things with it. It actually works really good for food prepping type of stuff. Like here, the Huntsman Seax. Same thing we're going to do square notch. There we go. Another square notch. Do a tent stake. Another tent stake. Let's do some slicing with this one. With that high saber grind, this one slices really well. Alright, so another task I'm going to try, I'm using the Huntsman Seax here, is I'm going to do just some light chopping. Now this thing's not like a super huge chopper, it's, you know, right at a 5.5 inch blade. But I'm just going to cut some limbs down, and I'm going to try to take down this tree using the batoning method. A high profile grind gives it a lot of really good edge geometry. I guess I can try to do some light chopping. Thing actually chops pretty good for its size. Now the only thing I would probably change up if this was ever a production knife is towards the end here, I would actually give this part here just a little bit more flair to it, just to kind of give it a little extra oomph, and maybe even turn this more into like a 6-inch blade. But even for its size, it chops pretty well. Alright, so another task I'm going to try with both the Huntsman Seax and the EDC Seax is when the Vikings and the Saxons used these, and you know, it's kind of debatable on who actually invented the Seax, you know, and you kind of see some different styles. But not only did they use these as a utilitarian knife, but they also used these as a defensive tool and a fighting knife, and so that was one of the things that I wanted with the Huntsman Seax, was it to be kind of a semi like tactical tool as well. So I'm going to test out the Huntsman Seax, and now I'm going to test out the EDC Seax. And this thing surprisingly stabs really well, and with that deep guard in there, your hand is going nowhere. And one thing about a Seax is, unlike a lot of knives with a curved belly on it, because it just has a straight edge, when you're slicing, it doesn't want to like just slice along. It actually wants to grab and pull down. And so as a fighting knife, I would actually think, like, you know, I'm going to do this real lightly. Instead of it just slicing, it would actually try to pull because of just that straight edge. I'm going to test out the EDC Seax. Now, I am wearing gloves. These are kind of soft gloves too, so probably not ideal, but it's cold as shit out here. Just like its big version, this thing stabs really well. I'm not going to do any prying, just because that's such a thin little edge, or a thin tip on there, and such a thin tip, and it's Nitro V. But I am going to the thing just slices really well. And even though this one has a broomstick shaped handle, the way Bear Force Knives did it, he kind of gave it some slight flats, which actually helps with edge alignment, which is great for, you know, potential fighting knife. But either way, both of these Seax knives would serve you well in a tactical role. So one of the things I was going to show with the Bear Force Knives EDC Seax was how I actually EDC it. So obviously I have this knife, this Cold Steel SRK on me. I'm just kind of testing it out. But as you can see, you cannot see the knife on me at all. The EDC Seax. And I EDC it underneath my belt, going into my back pocket with the clip on the outside, and so then the belt and the clip is kind of holding it on, and I have an easily deployable EDC knife, fixed blade. Well, my friends, I don't generally do a 2-for-1 review, but since both of these knives are from the same maker and they're both kind of similar styles of the same like design, I guess, but just different sizings, I just kind of felt like I had to do them both together. So these are not his normal production knives. The Huntsman Seax and the EDC Seax. I think he just did like a limited run on these. But if you're interested in a Seax, hit up Bear Force Knives and let them know, like, hey, I think a Viking Saxon style knife would be really cool to have. I kind of really like the EDC Seax. I think it's pretty cool. But the Huntsman Seax is really cool as well. So hit him up. I'm going to try. Overall, I'm very impressed with both of these. He does amazing work for his custom knives. But I'm going to probably send these off, or I'm going to try to send these off to the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors and get his kind of non-biased take on these. So keep an eye out for that. I don't know when he'll be able to get to these, so it might be a little while, just because I know he's pretty busy. So with all that being said, be prepared, both physically and spiritually. God bless. Carry on.